Councilmember Cope,
Here.
Evans, Martin, Reddy, Burkhart.
I'd like to welcome everyone that is in the audience this evening with us. If you are here for an item that is on the agenda, we would ask for you to wait for that item to come up and address the council at that time. If you are here for an item that is not on the agenda, there'll be an opportunity under public communications to address the council, and that will be coming up here shortly. The next item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. And let's see who we can, I don't think Councilman Reddy has ever led us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is the agenda approval. Jim, are there any changes to the agenda?
No changes this evening.
Council, any changes? Do we have a motion to approve the agenda? We have a motion. Second, any discussion? Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Evans, Martin, Reddy, Burkhart.
Yes.
Cope.
Yes.
Motion passed. Moving on to public communications, we have one scheduled item under public communications, and that is the Community Planning Month proclamation. Do we have anybody that wants to speak to the council on the proclamation?
I'm covering for David Wilberding on this, and because he's out of town, and I completely forgot about it until right now. So I'll just say that it is Community Planning Month. We'll be featuring all of the planning staff and some social media posts over the course of the next few weeks. And thank you for passing the resolution and acknowledging the good work the planning staff does.
Thank you, Adam. I'll go ahead and read the proclamation. And it reads, Community Planning Month Proclamation, whereas change is constant and affects all cities, towns, suburbs, counties, rural areas, and other places. And whereas community planning and plans can help manage this change in a way that provides better choices for how people work and live. And whereas community planning provides an opportunity for all residents to be meaningfully involved in making choices that determine the future of their community. And whereas the full benefits of planning requires public officials and citizens who understand, support, and demand excellence in planning and plan implementation. And whereas this month of October is designated as National Community Planning Month throughout the United States. And whereas the American Planning Association and its professional institute, the American Institute of Certified Planners, endorsed National Community Planning Month in an opportunity to highlight the contributions sound planning and plan implementation make to the quality of our settlements and environment. And whereas the celebration of National Community Planning Month gives us the opportunity to publicly recognize the participation and dedication of our citizen planners, including the members of the City Council, Planning and Zoning Commission, and Board of Adjustment, who have contributed their time and expertise to the improvement of the city of Johnston, Iowa. And whereas we recognize the many valuable contributions made by the professional planners within the Community Development Department and extend our heartfelt thanks for the continued commitment to public service by these professionals. And whereas we recognize that the city of Johnston, Iowa is a better community as a result of the implementation of numerous successful planning initiatives, such as the Thrive 2040 Comprehensive Plan, the Town Center Redevelopment Plan, the Watershed Assessment and Stormwater Management Plan, and the Merle Hay Road Gateway Redevelopment Plan. Now therefore be it resolved that the month of October 2021 is hereby designated as Community Planning Month in the city of Johnston, Iowa, in conjunction with the celebration of National Community Planning Month. And it's dated today and signed by me. The reason I wanted to read this is because I think it really does capture very well all of the planning initiatives that we've been involved in now for several years, many of which we're just now seeing the fruits of labor for. as well as it recognizes the hard work not only our paid professional staff do in community planning, but also the volunteers, our citizens who serve on the Planning and Zoning Commission, the Board of Adjustment, and in other ways contribute to the great community planning that we have going on in our community. So I wanted to make sure that was fully recognized and that we did extend our appreciation to all of them. So thank you all very much for the hard work that you do and the great results because of it. So really appreciate that. That is the only scheduled item under public communications. This would be a time for anyone who would like to address the council on an item that is not on the agenda to share your thoughts. So is there anyone in the audience this evening that would like to address the council on an item that is not on the agenda?
Ted Larson, I live at 6516 Northwest 48th Street. I've met some of you, I've spoke with some of you. I haven't met the rest of you, but thank you all for your service at I'd like to walk this up to the bench, if I could deliver this
Why don't
package.
you hand it to Cindy and
Okay.
Cindy will distribute it.
Thank you. She's gonna pass around or hand that out, but we've had, I'm only representing myself, and Mike Schreers is not here. We've had a couple of meetings with Mr. Sanders and the mayor in the past. We're just looking for a solution. We have a erosion issue behind our homes, River Bend. And I've made a 3-page just visual to start the conversation with the council but we're asking for a partnership and, start from scratch stage if we can to find a resolution to fix this problem that's only growing every year. It's pretty self-explanatory. We've lost quite a bit of riverbank back there, both Mike and the Larson side. And I think the solution is bring earth in, pack it down, put fabric over it, rip wrap it, and then call it good. But it's not a small project. I don't think the pictures give it justice, but it does show, the 06 photograph. There were 2 high water events in 08 and 10. And if you find boulders, there's dots across that riverbank. Half of them are gone. They're down below somewhere, and the earth is somewhere south of the homes in the river and beyond. So my whole intent to here is just introduce myself, give my contact, and see if we can create a brainstorm, a committee, something that we can do to access funds. One point that was frustrating when we met with you, Mayor, and Mr. Sanders was the Polk County Conservation gentleman, and I can't remember his name without looking at those notes.
I don't recall off the top of my head either.
Jonathan Swanson.
That was him.
Okay.
But at that meeting that we had, he had shared that, gosh, I wish you guys would have told me about this 30 days ago. And this, I think, was October of 18, or it was 19, but I have 18 in my head. But he said, if we'd have known about this project, it would have been 75%, if not 100% covered by FEMA. But we missed the window 30 days earlier that closed the application process for a project like that. So that was extremely frustrating to learn that. So what I want to do is just start the conversation again. We can't improve the home. My wife and I live 3 blocks away. This is my parents' home. I actually built it for them in 2000. They passed in 16 and 17, so it's now arguably my house. But my wife and I intend to move into it. But we can't renovate it. We can't do the things we want to do to it. We can't even sell it with this situation in the backyard. And our intent is to move in, do something fun on the side lot. But we gotta work from the back out, and the thing in the back is the riverbank. So I'm asking for a time to start looking at this and get it on the agenda and figure out how we're going to find funding for this. And I'm not speaking for Mike, but I'm pretty sure he'll participate in a level, as will I at some level, but it's not a small expense. So that's why I'm here asking for help. That's all I
Thank you,
have.
Chad. We've had a lot of conversations about this. And we've talked to our congressional members and the Army Corps of Engineer and others, so
Yep.
let's pick it back up again and see.
Not
what
an easy problem.
It is. I mean, it's not an easy problem.
Right. Yep. Okay. Thank you very
You
much.
bet. Thank you, Jen. Is there anyone else in the audience this evening that would like to address the council on an item? Cindy, can you tell if there's anybody online with us? Okay, very good. Okay, well, let's move on to item number 4 then, public hearings. We have one public hearing scheduled this evening, and that is to conduct a public hearing and consider resolution number 21-268, adopting plan specifications, form of contract, and estimate of cost. Resolution number 21-269, making award of construction contract, and resolution number 21-270, approving construction contract and bond for the construction of BCRC detention and support parking site prep. And we'll open this public hearing at 7:16. John?
Good evening. The detention area and site grading for the additional parking lot went out to bid on September 23rd. Just to give you a little bit of a recognition of where we're at here. The detention is the area in red. This will be detention approximately 20 to 22% that will drain from the Ignite site towards it. The vast majority of it actually will be tackling finally the detention of the Flume. Currently, the Flume has full access to drain directly out into Beaver Creek, and we have not been cleaning it the way we should be. So this detention will catch that water and will take a lot of the impurities there, as well as forming a detention for the Ignite site. So this initial phase of this project is all the grading as well as creating that detention. As I said before, September 23rd was our bid opening. We did have 6 bids that came in that day for this project, which is pretty good for this time of the year. The low bid was Elder Corporation at $788,250. The cost opinion from the engineer was $963,359, so approximately 18% under the cost opinion. We are looking to get this project started relatively soon. We still have a couple permits that we're waiting for before full work can begin, but we're looking to try to get most of this accomplished this fall if at all possible. So Civil Design Advantage, CDA, has recommended the approval of this, and they are the engineers project. I'll take any questions that you may have.
Let's have any questions for John?
Yeah, I do. Okay.
It's on.
John, I think it's great. Great that we got the construction bid at 18% below the estimate. What are our plans for landscaping?
Well, first of all, we are still looking at the perimeter of the pond and seeing if we can create some diversity as far as that goes.
So the question I had the last time this
Yes,
came
we're
up,
looking
that
into that, yeah.
making it look a little bit more natural and less like an engineered box.
Correct. As far as the landscaping goes, we do have a little bit of additional money that's in this fund that we potentially could look at city coming back and landscaping. This is 100% city property that this is on. So we feel like it would be less expensive and probably done more appropriate if we go ahead and bid that out as a separate project that the city has control over.
What is, so have you got a budget number in mind for
We
this
don't at this
landscape?
point, no.
Okay.
No, this will probably end up being, because the landscaping and all that will, or not the landscaping, but the detention will be formed, probably completed, hopefully December, early January type time. So we'll be looking at a spring planting. So we'll have time late fall through the winter to get the landscaping plan put together and bid out.
So I would encourage, I understand we're losing a couple dozen trees, but I know that you know this. I would encourage that we provide a diverse amount of tree species, trees that will support habitat, pollinators, et cetera. And I wouldn't skimp on the amount of trees we put in between here and the neighboring townhomes.
Yeah, and we may
And
even look
I'm-
for some grant opportunities with the trees too.
I wouldn't be bad to take it to the tree board too and let them have a little bit of a look. I really appreciate that.
Yep. Currently, the diversity through there is mainly cottonwood and willow. So
So we have a
Creating that.
chance here to make a more quality, long-lasting buffer,
Correct.
adding evergreens too, correct? Thank you.
Kind of related to that, John, what is going to be the process for the development of that plan? The landscaping?
yeah, typically if we do anything with landscaping, we'll work directly through the tree board to get recommendations. So a lot of it starts at the staff level with our city arborist, with Tracy, develops a plan associated with it, and then we'll come back to the tree board. Not very similar to like tomorrow, we'll be doing a derecho planting. We received a grant to allow for 63 trees to be planted in the natural resource area. So we took that process through the tree board, got this specific trees that everybody desired, came back through, got those ordered, and tomorrow we'll be planting with the help of the tree board.
'Cause I couldn't agree with Councilwoman Martin more. I think that we need to approach this as if it's an amenity, which it should be. And it's right there, in the midst of our Beaver Creek Natural Resource Area. It's going to border our playground area.
Sure.
We need to make sure that whatever we do here, it can become an attraction, not a distraction or
Definitely.
worse. So we really need to think creative.
You don't want it to look like a dry bottom
Right.
detention area that's just scraggling that. I agree.
Other questions for John?
Mayor, I do. John, the map that's up on screen right now does depict, and we've seen this quite a bit, that kind of rerouted trail near there or in between there and the Ignite property.
Correct.
Does this bid actually provide any grading for that trail, or how will that eventually be accomplished?
The trail will probably be done in a couple of different mini phases per se. And I'll come over to the map. I know nobody will be able to hear me, but
Is the microphone?
First phase is really, we're trying to get all the grading done eventually for the Ignite project, which means there's going to be a lot of fill coming in. Currently, the trail goes through part of that area. So the initial phase, we're looking at trying to get kind of a mini little project done this fall, which will be probably somewhere around a $50,000 project that will start the trail and come out to around here and then tie back into the original trail to get it off the grading limits. And then as everything else is developed, we'll bring the trail down further and let it run the course. So there'll be a trail that will run up along here and join back on. This trail up here will join, and then there will be an inner trail system through the Ignite facility. So the key to this fall, as much as we can, is to get that trail off the grading limits so that we can continue that process.
Thank you.
You look, it will probably be a roundabout for the trail, so it'll be our first trail roundabout. Matt's so proud of me.
Any other questions for John? This is a public hearing on this item. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the council? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing then at 7:24. We have 3 resolutions before us. Do we have a motion to approve resolution number 21-268?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second discussion. Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Martin,
Yes.
Ready, Burkhart,
Yes.
Cope,
Yes.
Evans.
Motion passed. Do we have a motion to approve resolution number 21-269?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second discussion. Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Ready, Burkhart,
Yes.
Cope,
Yes.
Evans, Martin.
Yes.
Motion passed. And do we have a motion to approve resolution number 21-270? We have a motion and a second discussion. Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Burkhart,
Yes.
Cope,
Yes.
Evans, Martin,
Yes.
Ready.
Motion passed. Moving on to the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Cope,
Yes.
Evans, Martin,
Yes.
Ready, Burkhart.
Yes.
Motion passed. Moving on to item 7A, consider first reading of ordinance number 1064, amending chapters 55.01 and 55.21 related to animal protection and control regulations. Chief?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This should hopefully be pretty brief for you. There's two small sections that we're seeking to amend in the animal control ordinances to help support the trap neuter return program that we're seeking to implement within the Johnston Police Department. The first section, 55.01, is the definition section for animal control, and we're simply adding 4 definitions that are listed within the ordinance in red font. Those are new additions to the definition section, so that we can better define the working parameters of the program. And then in 55.21, we've added 2 additional sections to that. This covers at-large impoundment. The first section remains within the code as previously written. We've just added a clarification as far as feral cats being included within that impoundment provisions. And then the final section is an attempt to try to control costs of the program. Sometimes we might run into situations where folks would attempt to surrender animals through means which they should be responsible for as a pet owner, as opposed to it being a wild or feral. So those are the pieces of the definition within the board docs information. I've also just included for your perspective a draft of our operating order for putting this program into place. If you're a little bit more curious about the depth or detail of how we're going to seek to implement this, there's also a statistical tracking sheet that we're developing to try to measure the success of the program over time. And then assuming the council wishes to move forward with the ordinance amendments tonight, at the next meeting, I'll bring forward under the consent agenda two cooperative agreements with local veterinary clinics that will do the work as far as the sterilization of the animals. So I did not put that on the agenda tonight, given that this is the first one. So I believe those are the high points. If there's any questions.
Council,
Thanks to Tim too for his efforts with this and helping.
Council, have any questions for the chief?
I have no questions for the chief. He knows my feelings on this issue. I'm still going to be a no on the trap neuter release program. I love cats. I've always loved cats. They're my favorite animal. They are bird killers, and so I do not believe that we should have feral cats released back into nature. I know there's not a better solution. I can't think of one myself, but I think that the songbirds need our protection. Thank you.
I guess I would just follow up by saying, we've had a good discussion about this issue in a couple different ways. And I think that the plan by neutering those feral cats helps to maybe control the population, and hopefully then in the long run helps those songbirds. So that's why I do support the effort.
Any other questions or comments by the council? Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the council on this item? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve first reading of ordinance number 1064?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Evans, Martin,
No.
Ready, Burkhart,
Yes.
Cope.
Yes.
Motion passed. Councilman Martin, I would say that for the very first time in my life, I saw a bluebird in the Beaver Creek Natural Resource Area about a month ago. I've never seen one before, so we need to protect that little bird. Moving on to item 7B, consider third and final reading and adopt and publish ordinance number 1060, an official zoning map amendment for approximately 1.84 acres from C3 to MUC ROC 1. Subject property is located north of Northwest Johnston Drive and west of the Interurban Trail.
No changes since last reading.
Any questions for, who said that? For Aaron? Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the council on this item? If not, do we have a motion to approve third and final reading?
Mayor.
Oops. Do you want to approach the table here and give us your name and your address?
I'm Rick Hogan. We live at 5550 Northwest 55th Avenue. We're right behind this proposed project. And we've been here before. We just are very concerned about the height of the project, with 4 stories being 12 to 14 foot high each story, and plus a roof on that. It's going to be a huge building in the back. And as they developed the property to the east of that, they pretty much wiped out every single tree on the property. And we would appreciate if they would address the tree situation and make sure that we keep some trees on that property. There's some very nice trees through that property. Once again, we're concerned about the traffic along Johnston Drive. It's going to be a lot of traffic. We're not opposed to the development of this project, but just really want to, we're concerned a lot of people are going to be, there's going to be a lot of people crammed in a small area. Where are these people going to go? Are they going to be walking around in our backyard? Are they going to put a fence up? How is that going to be protected? Are they going to have animals there? We're concerned about a lot of things, but obviously that property needs to be developed, and look forward to everybody making good decisions for us. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. I think, Aaron, correct me if I'm wrong. Many of the items that Mr. Hogan has identified here, we can continue to have discussion and see if we can address through the rest of the process, the site plan and otherwise.
That's right. This is just the rezoning, and this is, of course, third reading. So after tonight, the zoning for the property would be established, but there's additional review phases in the future where we would take a site plan to the Planning and Zoning Commission and then bring it on to the City Council for review. And during that process, we look a little bit more closely at buffering and design of the building, things of that nature. So there will be another opportunity to make sure that those items that he was concerned about are addressed, and he will also get a mailing when it comes to the City Council. So he'll have an opportunity to come back if he wishes.
Mr. Hogan, keep an eye on us. Is there anyone else that would like to address the council on this item? If not, do we have a motion to approve third and final reading and to adopt and publish ordinance number 1060?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Martin,
Yes.
Ready, Burkhart,
No.
Coe,
Yes.
Evans.
Motion passed. Item 7C, consider second reading of ordinance number 1063, amending the Johnston revised ordinances of 2007 by amending the official zoning map to rezone approximately 21.67 acres and adjoining right-of-way from planned unit development, allowing uses of the PC Professional Commerce Park District to planned unit development, allowing detached single-family association homes to be known as the Windsor Villas PUD. Subject property is located south of Windsor Parkway and west of Thomas Avenue.
No changes since the second or the first reading, except for the changes that were approved as part of the first reading. I think there was a amendment to the resolution at the first reading, and that's been incorporated into the ordinance. No other changes. And that change had to do with the trail that went north on the north and south on the easternmost private drive in that development.
Council, have any questions for Aaron? Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the council on this item?
Good evening. My name is Adam Haar, 6724 Northwest 48th Court. Regarding the current language of the resolution. The amendment made to section F, access, circulation, and parking. The removal of the intent for a connecting street or stub to Northwest Windsor Drive to the south of the planned development. I strongly suggest that the council reconsider removing that requirement. It's obvious based on the construction of Northwest Windsor Drive and the street area north of Windsor Parkway, where there's already the opportunity for a connection to Northwest 62nd Street, that the intent has been in the plan for many years to make that a connecting street. The suggestion last week in the discussion that staff, both public safety and public works, had recommended making sure that the connection occurred there. That was overridden by council decision, the request for that amendment. I'd ask you to reconsider that and make sure that we maintain a well-connected and efficient street network to improve the efficiency of our public services and our, reduced vehicle miles traveled for our citizens and other businesses and other operations in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from anyone in the audience? Maybe just a quick comment in response to what Mr. Har just said. I know that this is an issue that we had quite a bit of discussion at our last city council meeting on, and I think the consensus of the group that time, I think it was the consensus of the group.
The overwhelming consensus.
The overwhelming consensus of the group at that time was to make this change in the proposed ordinance. So I appreciate you sharing your concerns. Certainly the council can change their mind up here tonight if they want to do that, but I think we had some pretty thorough discussion at the last city council meeting on this.
Well, in all fairness, I would say that it wasn't an easy discussion. It was
Absolutely.
not an easy decision, but I'm not inclined to change.
I'm ready to make a motion.
Well,
for
I
second
just
reading.
want to make a comment on this. To me, I think one of those issues, and I think Mr. Hare, brings a good point that this road was planned and there's lots of sort of planning. But I think one of the things about it is that plan was also based upon a couple of assumptions. One that have changed significantly. One is that area was going to develop into commercial office use, and so that was one reason for the need to have that connection. That's changed. The use of the land is completely different. Second of all, if you look at that, with the addition of 100th Street, the 100th Street exchange off the interstate, the roads that have developed along that area have increased significantly. 54th being a good example of that. So now 54th is being completely rebuilt, is able to handle and manage traffic. And so the people who live in that area have a very good access, whether it's heading west or south or east. I don't deny that it may be a little bit challenging if they want to head north, but at the same time, the residents of that neighborhood feel like they already have very good access and circulation. So to me, I think I feel that there is no need to have that connection road made, whether it's on this project or frankly any project that is being built there along that area south of Windsor Parkway. And so to me, I think it's sort of a slam dunk. So, but that being said, I can certainly see where others would, there's a lot of voices on it, and a lot of different opinions on it. But from my perspective, it was pretty straightforward.
With that, it looks like Councilman Burkhart is ready to make a motion. So do we have a motion for second reading of ordinance number 1063?
So moved on second reading.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Burkhart,
Yes.
Cope,
Yes.
Evans, Martin,
Yes.
Ready.
Motion passed. And thank you, Mr. Har, for sharing your comments with us. Item 7D, consider approval of the following items related to PC case 2119, located east of Northwest 100th Street and north of Northwest 82nd Avenue. Resolution 21-286, a resolution accepting off-site public easements in support of Crosshaven Townhomes Plat 2 and Crosshaven Plat 9. And Resolution 21-287, a resolution approving the final plat for Crosshaven Townhomes Plat 2. Clayton.
Good evening. This final plat is brought forward by Hubble Realty Company to subdivide 13.99 acres into 56 townhome lots, a combination of single-family bi-attached and the detached townhome villa lots they're offering. This would complete their Crosshaven Townhomes development within the larger Crosshaven development. It's all private utilities and street networks within the development, so no public infrastructure, and would tie into public streets and have buffering around the perimeters as well. Area is the development is consistent with the approved preliminary plat site plan, which was approved in 2017. It's consistent with the zoning and the comprehensive plan. And it has been to the Planning and Zoning Commission, who has recommended approval of this final plat. I am happy to go into further detail as needed or answer any questions you may have. And I believe we might have some representatives in the audience if you have questions of them.
Does the council have any questions for Clayton?
Clayton, this will continue the townhomes, the same kind of type of construction that currently has been built to the west of this?
Correct. This would complete that
Right,
development.
but the same type of property?
Yes. That's how it's been explained to staff by Hubble.
Clayton, there's quite a bit of landscape on this plat. Will the landscaping be installed as the lots are finished or ahead of time?
The buffer landscaping, which is around the perimeter, would go in prior to building permits. And anything internal, like on the lots, those would go in with the homes. And they'd have to provide a bond to assure that that there's the guarantee that it'll be completed. The thought process there is we don't want to get the landscaping in and then run over by construction equipment. This property is within an HOA, and they have established private buffer easements that the HOA is responsible for.
Other questions for Clayton? Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the council on this item? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve resolution number 21-286? We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Cope,
Yes.
Evans, Martin,
Yes.
Ready, Burkhart.
Yes.
Motion passed. Do we have a motion to approve resolution number 21-287?
Moved.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Evans, Martin,
Yes.
Ready, Burkhart,
Yes.
Cope.
Yes.
Motion passed. Item 7E, consider second reading of ordinance number 1062, amending the Johnston revised ordinances of, whoops, did I miss one? I'm sorry?
We did too, didn't we? There's just two of them, 86 and 87.
That's all right. I've moved on too quickly before, so wouldn't have surprised me. Item 7E, consider second reading of ordinance number 1062, amending the Johnston revised ordinances of 2007 by amending the official zoning map to rezone approximately 31.59 acres located west of Merle Hay Road and the future westward extension of Northwest Johnston Drive to planned unit development district to be known as the Ignite Recreation Complex and Johnson Gateway Park PUD. Aaron.
At the last city council meeting, the council passed first reading of this ordinance. After passing first reading, the applicant was encouraged to get together with some of the adjacent townhome and condominium owners to discuss some of their concerns. And the applicant did hold an open house at the Grimes Ignite facility on Wednesday, September 29th. I personally wasn't able to attend that meeting, but representatives from Ignite are here tonight, and they can talk about that meeting if you would like to call them up. Otherwise, there have been no changes to the ordinance since the first reading.
Does anybody have any questions for Aaron?
The public meeting that came by, which tell us that nobody said anything beyond what was said.
That's where I would defer to Ignite. Chad, are you able to come up and talk about the open house that you held on the 29th? And he can give you a better idea of some of the issues that were discussed and how many people were in attendance.
Yes, hi, thank you. Chad O'Mara, Ignite Sports and Fitness, 200 Southeast 37th Street, Grimes, Iowa. Yeah, we did, we reached out, we had a spirited conversation even right after the proceedings last time, and talked to everybody with their concern. Generally wanted to invite people over to kick the tires, see the business model, and see what our real intent is in the project for the community. We called it an open house forum to see what our business model was, how the business grew up, what the intent was, and to talk about the new project and any concerns. We had several phone conversations to try to help set up the meeting agenda. Most of those went extremely well. And I noticed a couple of them are not here tonight, but those seem to be constructive conversations. The open house itself, we had one participant that had kind of gotten there through the phone tree. So they weren't somebody that we invited directly, because we did with the small group that was here, we asked them to kind of spread the word and get people to come to the open house. So they did do that. And it was actually a very, very good discussion. And I think a good learning about the business model. The woman had been at the Ignite complex in Grimes with her family, and so realized it's a very family-oriented place in its own right. And I think it's with it being a population of one, it was a limited sample. And I think that if we come back to it, I think the major concern is the noise. I think that, we reviewed a lot of the Merle Hay corridor improvements. We reviewed a lot of, and there were also two representatives from the city as well. So John Schmitz and Adam Plaguey were there as well. That was much appreciated. They talked about the gateway overall proceedings. And, and so I think we just kind of went through it. And the major view was just, if we can understand the noise a little bit as we're moving forward on the project. That seemed to be the major concern.
President, at the last meeting that we had, one of the mind raised issue of music concert and being loud noise. I think that's what you're referring to. So is there a solution that you had for the gentleman, or is that something?
Well, and the gentleman isn't here tonight, I don't think, and would like his feedback. But after the discussion, we really, our view is that we want to comply with the noise ordinance of the city. And that if we'd have a festival or something that would be outside that realm, we would apply for a permit and step forward. And I think that his overall concern was that it was just going to be a repetitive thing, that was going to become part of our core business model. And we tried to really, ensure that it's really more part of the festival atmosphere of the type of activities that that we would have, and it just wouldn't, that's not the purpose of our business. So.
Any other questions for Chad?
So, I do have a question. So sometimes it's a matter of, sorry. I do have a question. Sometimes it's a matter of how you present something. So I've heard people call this a music venue. I would think that you're probably saying that's not a music venue. Can you give us any kind of idea about how often you would be asking for that variance?
Well, so, you know, part of it is.
Yearly is what I'm asking.
Yeah, on like an annual basis.
Mhm.
It's tough to respond to that because I think even some people know here, a lot of our things we'll have to go out to bid for. If we get a national track meet, you know, and they want to have an opening ceremony or a kickoff or something like that. So, you know, in some of those, you know, it's just really difficult for me to just have a number in mind. But those are the type of activities that we're looking to sponsor as a community thing. We'd like to partake in the Green Days. You know, we're an extension and there's a, you know, kind of a shared utilization of a park area. And so those are the type of things. So if, you know, do I think it's going to be, I just don't have a number in mind. I really don't. And I apologize for that. I can study it a little bit more and I'll have more as we do the business development and understand the type of, you know, activities that we have. You know, right now I would say just pure music events per se, very few, you know. I mean, if we said 6 to 10, that would be a lot. Now, are we going to do some kickoff things for some of the activities we have and do some celebration with that? We might do some. But, you know, I don't think our, you know, especially, it's not a concert venue. It just isn't. That's not the pure intent of this thing.
So Chad, when you talk about music events, can you describe, if it's not a concert, it's not like somebody said AC/DC. What do you have in mind, or what?
Well, so, you know, a lot of activities, so might have an opening ceremony, right? And you might play an hour and a half of music as part of the celebration of everybody coming together in the community to partake in that. And then there might be a closing ceremony as well. That's a component of a substantial one that we're actually kind of in the running for at this point today. And I just don't think, we wanted to make sure that people knew that there were going to be some opportunity, you know. I think there was an example of you guys had a town center kickoff and you had a concert up there to celebrate that. That would be the type of activity that we would be involved with. You know, do we think we're going to book AC/DC and do a concert into the back area of this property? No.
Sort of a reflection of that.
As you, I mean, your business is sort of athletic events and, you know, big tournaments type thing, a big volleyball tournament or a big basketball tournament or multi-sport type thing. And those types of events have a little bit of an entertainment element to them too. I mean, if you look at when the NCAA basketball tournament comes to downtown Des Moines, it's not just the basketball games going on. They've got stuff going on at the Hy-Vee Events Center. And so they try to make this, because it really is a happening, and it's sort of people come and they want to be, you know, not just go to the athletic event, but maybe, you know, get a bite to eat, or they want to walk around and see some of those things. And so you're trying to incorporate some of those elements, which could include some sort of live music as part of that, and basically trying to make sure you have that ability. Is that a fair?
That's exactly right. We call those lifestyle things that go along with, you know, if you notice, and I'm very analytical, so I'm sorry if I take this in a different route, but prior to the pandemic, you know, sports travel started to become a major category within the travel industry. And we would have, you know, parents or grandparents of kids that are playing like our baseball club saying, hey, would you go to Kansas City more often? Would you book our teams into Kansas City? We want to shop, eat, and go out into entertainment because they have some entertainment districts down there. I call that lifestyle. It's an extension of what our core business is. And we just want to and then also just the consistency with the overall, the gateway improvement. I think that there is some intent to bring a little bit more restaurant, lifestyle, entertainment into the area as well. And so we just we think we'll be very consistent in helping do that.
I have an additional question. So, you're in design right now. I'm visualizing in my head. I'm visualizing a screen that's going to be playing video, whatever, and the music, and like there's a 5K race, and this is the finish line area, and people are finishing they're finishing their run. They're all excited. They're getting their water and their orange juice and their bananas and all that other stuff. That kind of thing. We have this neighborhood to the north that is very concerned about noise. How can we help get them less concerned about this kind of noise? Can we talk to them about saying we're not going to be pointing the speakers in that direction? Can you give some assurances that way? How can we come to a way of?
That's where hopefully the open house would give a little bit more, concrete view of what the concern is. But, I said to the person that showed up, we're Des Moines developers. We're original Iowa settlers, but doggone it, and so we take a lot of pride. I mean, we're neighbors, right? And so we take that word pretty seriously. So if there's anything we can do in helping set up that mitigates it, even if we have a snafu in one and we get some feedback, we'll change it. That's similar to what we do, because we're a community organization, try to be as inclusive as possible, right? And so that's families, kids of all ages, all the way up through, so that's our business model. So anything that we can do to mitigate that, we'd love to do it. And to your point, in the design, there are certain areas, and so, we made, another thing is that, this is why this is a public-private partnering as well. We may host a movie night. I've been doing movie night where the symphony has played the score and the music is beautiful. And if you could bring some of that to the Johnston community, those are the type of things. Now, do I think we're going to be blaring music until midnight at these things? No, that's not the intent. So I think we can limit, into the evening, tamper down the hours of those type of things. I think we can limit the number. If there's anything we can do from a setup standpoint to mitigate any of the noise, we would, definitely look at that.
So I'm rooting for you. I really am. I'm rooting for you. I think it's very exciting. But I also hear from the neighbors. So it seems to me 6 to 8 events, music, you kind of said those type of music events seems like a lot. Again, if it's just during the day and it's part of like the 5K or it's a kickoff to a soccer weekend for parents, seems a little different. I'm trying to get defined to what you think is a musical event. You said the town center opening. So you did say that you'd like, maybe there would be a singer.
I think if there's part of Green Days and they're going to spread out some festival, then we'd like to be considered as a host site for that. Nice presentation, and what I heard was, they had a great concert, and it was a nice way to kick off, the town center development. So do the type of occurrence, we're looking at an event today that might have an opening and a closing, and I can see us having an hour and a half type of celebration that Tom is bringing up as part of that, and I don't, at this point, I don't know whether it's going to be 5 p.m. or 8 p.m. I just don't know those type of things going forward. So the lifestyle component of this type of business, and that's why we insisted on having this discussion. I think we could have sailed through this and said, we want to comply with the sound, rules as much as possible. And I'm just calling out that every once in a while there may be a variation to it. Unfortunately, I wish I had a better answer on just pure number. Those type of events, I think if we start listing some of those out, I think that at some point it'll be good to have that conversation. But I pull it out as like a major NCA type of activity, some pretty large events.
So what I'm hearing is you're willing to work with where you do your setup so that you're not blasting sound toward the neighborhood and you're doing what you can to maybe buffer it. That-
Absolutely.
Is that
Yeah,
a good
absolutely.
statement? And that you can't say how many events right now there might meet this when you're going to ask for a noise variance. But you've said 6 to 8. I can't remember. Did you say that? Or 10 or something?
Type of business, we will host a lot of events. I don't want to, I think that when we had an external group come in and look at these type of venues around the country, they say that you're going to drive over 500,000 people into the area, for economic development purposes on an annualized basis. And so when you start to do the math on that, and you look at the type of layout and the type of areas, we're going to be very active on the weekends. And, so what we'll do is we'll be very cautious on the type of events that we, I think the celebration of lifestyle pieces would become, okay, this is one where it's critical we do some of that to be in running for those type of events. But, from the outside venue, we've heard very clearly we don't want a bunch of outside concerts, and that's not our business model anyway.
Okay, I think I've grilled you enough. And again, I want to say that I am very in support of what you're doing for Johnston. I think it's a good thing. I also want to somewhat mitigate the concerns of the neighborhood. It's a whole new thing for them, but they were there first. So as much as possible, if we can bring them on board, that'd be great. Thank you.
Other comments or questions for Chad? I guess one of the things that I've heard you say tonight, and I really appreciate it, and that is that, this is not a concert venue. You're not planning to bring in big bands on weekends and invite, encouraging 100,000 people to show up just to listen to music. That what you're proposing in terms of the music is associated with something else that's going on. It's a sporting event, or it's part of a community celebration that otherwise is already taking place. That's going to take place someplace in our community. So I think, that should help mitigate some of the concerns. The other thing that I think is going to, and Councilwoman Martin, this I think is consistent with something I heard you say earlier this week or last week, and that was that, as we see other development occur around there, that's going to create quite a barrier to any of the sound that's going to be, emanating from that side, as well as, planting of trees and other vegetation around there. I mean, everything
Happy to hear that.
everything that
There'd be a
occurs
strategy.
there is going to absorb some of that noise or block that noise into the future. So this is an ongoing conversation. We need to, we need to, make sure that we are, addressing those concerns and minimizing them to the extent that we can. And Chad, I have full confidence that you're going to work with us to make sure that happens. Any other questions for Chad? Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the council on this item? You must have got the dress code memo tonight.
I'm sorry.
You must have got the dress code memo.
I know. My name is Star Henricks. I live at 6078 Terrace Drive, which is directly north of the development. I need to take exception with how Chad presented the discussion about the open house. When we left here, the 5, 6 of us who were here to find out more about the development, it got very contentious. It got even more so when we stepped outside. It did calm down, and we were asked by Ignite to put our names down so that they could contact us. When we were contacted, it was to say there was an open house, and they wanted to talk with us about Ignite's business model, what they have done in the past, give us a tour of their facilities. I personally talked to Chad and told him, first of all, it went to 3 of us. None of the 3 of us could attend. Each of us had a standing obligation that Wednesday. I called Chad and told him we couldn't come, and he invited me to go and invite no more than 50 of the neighbors. The neighbors have no idea what is going on. I mean, they know they signed a petition, but they don't know what is going on. I talked with Chad and told him our issue isn't with Ignite. Our issue is if Ignite construction destroys the barrier of trees that will mitigate the sound and also serves as a visual barrier for the townhomes that are facing that way. I was interrupted numerous times by Chad, speaking over me, telling me if I wanted answers, I could come to the open house, which I couldn't do. The music had not been defined. It's more defined tonight, but I still have questions about that. And I really resented being treated so rudely. The reason you're not seeing a couple of the other people here tonight is they have thrown up their hands and given up. They have said it's a done deal and they're not going to talk about it anymore. We are not opposed to Johnston being progressive and building this beautiful recreational site. Not at all. I'm happy for the city. I'm happy for the development that it'll bring. But I'm very concerned about our home value, our way of living. I hope you all got the letter that I sent that talked to you about our 24 years living in this area, walking the paths, and being shielded from what was a pretty big disaster area up until the time that this project got started. I guess I would like to, at this point, I would just like to have the city's assurance of the things that were talked about tonight, that I hear your concern about plantings. I know that was discussed around the retention pond. That barrier that serves as a visual barrier for the townhomes needs a lot of attention, needs a lot of attention. And I don't think I am the only one who it was insinuated that this structure here would hold music venues. It would have fabric kinds of sides and it would hold music venues. I heard tonight, no, that wasn't really it. It would be more music venues as it starts a ceremony or finishes a race. I hope that's the case.
You've all heard it.
Okay. All right. I count on you to protect us as best you can.
Star, have you pulled together your homeowners association and had this conversation? I mean, you say that many of your neighbors aren't even aware of what's being proposed. You've got a homeowners association, correct?
We do. In Virginia, I think, who is board of the Homeowners Association, Virginia Peterson, can speak to that more directly than I.
I mean, that's a good way to get the information out, it seems to me.
Yeah. Are you able to talk about that?
Thank you. Thank you.
We do have Virginia Peterson, 6012 Terrace Drive. We do have a homeowners association. You are aware of Terrace Drive. It starts at Pioneer Parkway, and then it ends at Pioneer Parkway. It starts on the east and ends on the west. So there are 4 associations there on Terrace Drive. And the one association that has been active in this has been the Meadow Park Association. We have 37 units. The next larger unit, I think, is 33 townhomes. And Dick Walsh is president currently of that association, and he came and spoke last time. So, and then John Hardy is a member and president of the 3rd one. And then the 4th association, those members have not been active in following this issue. Our association meets all together once a year. We will be meeting Tuesday night, and I'm talking about it Tuesday night. But knowing that this is the 2nd reading, and I assume you have 3 readings, unless you waive the 3rd reading.
We won't do that.
Okay. We will be talking about it. And you know, we did kind of settle down the last time we were here. I have a grandson that I've followed all over Polk County and California as he played baseball. And we're not concerned about opening ceremonies and closing ceremonies. We would be concerned of using the venue more for music than for sporting events and the festivities and ceremonies that would go with sporting events.
Well, I hope some of what you've heard tonight has addressed some of your concerns. And again, as I said, this conversation needs to continue. We need to make sure that, you know, we make our best decisions when we have your input. So we want to continue to hear from you.
Thank you.
Aaron, can you address the issue around the trees, or maybe not Aaron, but somebody, can you talk a little bit about the trees and what the removal of the trees is going to involve?
At the last reading, we did have an exhibit of course, it wasn't part of the submittal, but it was an exhibit that we thought would be helpful that did include some of the potential tree removal for the detention basin. I don't believe we have it here tonight. Adam, do you happen to know where that exhibit is at? Okay. Is it phase 1 landscaping, perhaps?
No, I believe it runs the next.
I don't think that's it.
It's under the public hearings, not the consent.
Yes, that's the one. Is this the only thing, or is there multiple pages here? No, that was the only one. So he's there, I think that's the only one, Cindy. The engineers highlighted areas where there will be tree removal. Of course, you can see on the aerial there where the existing trees are. All of those trees are intended to remain in place. It's kind of hard to make them out there. Yep, Cindy's following, kind of tracing the line of existing trees there. There's just a portion here in the northeast corner of the basin area of tree removal that could be augmented when we get to the site plan review phase. That's an opportunity for us to look and say, maybe that area might need to be augmented with some additional plantings, such as Councilwoman Martin suggested, putting some evergreens along that north edge to help shield the noise that might come from this property. But really, it looks like a small area of trees to be removed at the northeast corner of the basin there. And there looks like there will be a significant stand of existing trees that will remain in place. Of course, I think that vacant property there in the northeast corner, I think that's an outlot that's owned by the city. It's not part of the townhome or condominium association. So that's city-owned property. If needed, there is an opportunity there for the city to plant additional trees to help shield the property there. But again, we can look at landscaping, and we will in depth when we go to the site plan portion of this. Tonight, of course, is just establishing the zoning. There's concerns about noise, and we're hearing those. And so when we get to that site plan stage, that's a good opportunity for us to look at the landscaping and probably best determine what we need to do to better augment this line of trees between the residents and the project.
Thank you, Aaron.
I just, as a follow-up to that, so because this detention pond is owned by the city, right?
Yes.
And so will this be part of the site plan review process for the whole project?
Yeah, I think you're going to probably end up seeing it twice. You're going to end up seeing it. It sounds like John's going to bring it to, maybe it might not make a stop at the city council when you're, earlier you talked about the processes involved, John, with this pond.
That there'll be a secondary planting once the project.
Will the council see the pond at that point?
Here's what I'm going to suggest. I think in an attempt to heighten people's opportunity to provide input, that I think it would be good if once we have kind of a plan for what that pond is going to look like. We've now talked about this at 2 meetings, whether the review, whether it be the trees or how the shape of the pond should look. I think that I would encourage, even though we've approved earlier tonight the awarding of the contract, that whatever, to the extent that when they come forward and here's what the exact design of the pond is going to be, and here's what the plantings are going to look like, I would suggest that be an item on a council agenda. So that provides folks an opportunity to hear that, as opposed to at a tree board meeting or something that's not quite as high profile. So that's why I asked that question about, because it's part of the rezoning, but it won't be part of the site plan necessarily by Ignite because they don't own it. So because that and the parking is a little unique, I would suggest that we figure out some sort of way to have a review of that, whatever that final detention pond is going to look like, happen at the council. And I know that's not sort of the traditional route, because obviously we've already approved earlier tonight that contract, and presumably design of this won't impact that process. But I think that will provide an opportunity for issues that many folks here at the dais have expressed an interest in. What's the routing of the detention pond going to look like? What are the tree impact? I would just suggest that we have some sort of council review of that.
And I can get together with John after tonight's hearing, and we can work out what that process would look like. That after it's gone through whatever park board review processes he needs to take it through, that it make a stop here so that you can take a look at what's been presented.
Right.
And then we'll have opportunity again to look at it at the site plan stage and say, hey, what happened with that pond design? Do we need to go back and revisit that and install additional landscaping?
As long as either it's at the site review or some sort of, that we're actually getting an opportunity, and as much as for us, the folks who want to have an opportunity to see it and have an opportunity to comment and weigh in on that, I think that would be positive, so.
One thing just to make note, so as you look at this plan, and I have no problem with bringing that forward, just realize we're not going to be able to plant trees all the way around this detention. The detention's placed in a purposeful way because it's under utilities. Right now, it's under the power lines. So there is limitations as far as where we can plant within this scope. So
And I don't
a
think
lot of it will be buffer
Right, and I think more
trees,
the
not-
idea is how you have using trees as a way to buffer the residential area.
And that's where we'll
That's the
focus.
primary objective. If that's, then that helps, so.
And it'll be double buffer. It'll be more of a buffer to the north as well as a buffer on the south side property line.
Okay, any other? Sir?
Long evening for you all.
Part of the job.
My name's Ron Salisbury. I live at 6030 Terrace Drive in Meadow Park. And I guess I'm left a little concerned tonight because we really didn't get much of any kind of definitive answers to your questions on how many concerts a year, how noisy the concerts would be. What part of the complex would those concerts be held in? Are they indoors or are they outdoors? Well, concerts, I guess, is not the right word. Musical events. So it leaves me a little confused. I think there's been a lot of progress as at building sound barriers and so forth. So that sounds like there's going to be some sound. And I'm just wondering if these sound barriers don't work out so well for the citizens in Meadow Park and Homestead and so forth. And pointing the speakers, I think southeast is about the only way you can point those speakers to avoid hitting a community of some kind, either of townhomes or homes across the other side of the pond to the west. So my question is that would the city council, if these measures really don't work out and we were to come back and say, could you possibly pass a sound ordinance not to exceed X number of debicycles? In the Meadow Park Association, we have 37 units. And of those units, there's only 2 that are younger than 55. Most of them are up in my age, which is around 80, 75 to 80 or older.
I was going to say 39, but.
No, that would be my brother.
That was a small joke.
Got me confused. So it's really important because if you go by the places in Meadow Park and even some of the other associations, you'll see most of the lights out in the house by 8, 9, 10 o'clock. It's dark. So sound is important to us, especially if it's loud. We don't even like barking dogs in our neighborhood, let alone loud music, which we think the complex is an excellent idea. It's a great amenity. Yeah, say it for me. See, that's what happens when you get older. But anyway, I just ask it, maybe y'all can't make a decision on that, but I think the board has the authority to probably set a sound ordinance of some kind for any event. And I don't think we're too particular because there was a really nice circus, I guess you would call it, over at Terra Park. And it got a little noisy, but it didn't disturb us. So we're not saying it's got to be absolute quiet. We're just saying
if there's going to be a loud agenda down there, and my other question was, how many people's going to be down there at one time? What's the maximum capacity? 8,000, 2,000, 5,000? Anybody know? Does Ignite know? 8,000. 8,000 people yelling makes a lot of noise. So hopefully that's before 9 o'clock. So these are concerns that we have, I think, that are legitimate. And so I appreciate you hearing me out. I didn't bring my notes, as you can see.
You did a
I
fine
kind of
job.
rambled.
You did a fine job. without
Okay, well,
notes.
thank you. You all do good work too. So we're really counting on you.
Well, you should.
Thank you.
Aaron, we do have a noise ordinance currently.
We do, and I believe it addresses this situation. I included some information on it in the staff report under the public comments section. Just to paraphrase from chapter 52, it doesn't mention a specific decibel level, but it does state plainly audible sound made by a drum, horn, reed instrument, string instrument, or other musical instrument or device, as well as the sound made by sound equipment. So in my mind, that covers just about any type of music, whether it's live music or music broadcast through a sound system. If it's plainly audible from the property line between the hours of 9 and 6:30 p.m., 9 p.m. and 6:30 a.m., that's prohibited between those hours. Those types of sound, those types of music would be allowed up until 9 p.m. and prohibited until 6:30 a.m. And that's direct from chapter 52 of our existing ordinance. And it doesn't mention a decibel level, it just says plainly audible. So in my mind, that means the music has to stop at 9 p.m. unless they were to approach you for some other type of special permission to go beyond those hours. So I do think that we already have existing language that governs timing of when they can and can't do this.
Aaron, you say they can approach you for a variance. What does that mean? They don't actually approach the city council for a variance. They would fill out a form, would they not?
Well, I don't think we have really a process in place now, so it's something that we're currently going through some revisions of our zoning ordinance. I think it's probably also, of course, the sound ordinance isn't part of the zoning ordinance, but it's something we need to look at, probably institute. Really, the only time this comes up is when the city organizes an event. But we probably need to look at a process for when a private entity wishes to conduct an event after these hours. And that would look like some type of form where they would make a request and it'd probably come to the city council. I'm not aware of any process.
Hey, Adam, we do have an events form that we are currently revamping right now that typically is done on city property, but most likely if there's a large enough event going on Ignite, they're probably going to be using a portion of city properties. So we certainly can create that form to allow us to be able to review these types of events on a city by city base or on a event by event, because there's probably going to be city staff that's going to be needed, whether it's police helping with traffic, public works out on traffic, parks associated with the park. So there's probably going to be some type of city involvement with a lot of these events anyways.
So currently that form is used for city events only?
Correct.
And who looks at it?
Well, it's not city events, it's public, or it's events that are put on by a private individual within a city park or a city space.
Events happening in public spaces?
Yes.
And who approves that form?
That goes through all of this different departments.
And does it get published publicly then for neighbors to be able to see?
Currently it doesn't, but it's certainly something that we can look at as a component of it.
And it sounds like it doesn't make a stop at the council, it just goes through departments?
It has not gone through council.
That's a process. If you wanted it to make a stop here, then you would have to make the necessary changes to acquire that. But it sounds like there is a process in place that we could adapt or change to address that situation for events that would have music after 9 p.m. But in my opinion, chapter 52 addresses this, and it says they can't have music that's discernible from the property line between the hours of 9 PM and 6:30 AM.
But that's a conversation for another day. Virginia, very, very quickly.
So I do have a question now. Does the city ordinance, would that be in effect? Or is this to have a variance from the city ordinance?
We have a city ordinance in effect now. It's been in effect for.
And is the public hearing about sound now to have a variance?
No.
Okay.
One last question.
Okay, real quickly.
How many parking spaces do we have down there?
I think we're still working on parking spaces.
Roughly, how many is it gonna be?
One more.
Okay.
Excuse me.
You betcha.
That PUD master plan currently has 482 parking spaces. And they've estimated that they might have some special events that could create a parking demand for as many as 1,000 vehicles. And at the previous reading, we talked about they will be exploring opportunities for shared parking and busing opportunities, maybe parking at Crown Point and busing persons. And remember, just, one parking space doesn't mean that every car arrives with one person in it. You're gonna, there might be 4 or 5 people in the car. So when we talk about 482 to 500 parking stalls, that could be somebody pulls up in their minivan and 8 kids fall out of it. You can see how these numbers do add up, but yeah, currently the site plan shows 482 parking stalls.
With that site plan rounded off of 500, 8,000 people, that's quite a few people in a car.
Well, I think that's why we're still reviewing exactly how that'll look out. So anyway.
So this is a zoning map change that we're discussing tonight.
Right, this is establishing the zoning for the property. With any zoning change, there's 3 readings at the city council level. Tonight's the 2nd reading. The 3rd reading is scheduled for your next council meeting, which would be, 2 weeks from tonight? I don't know the date of that. 18th? That would be the 3rd and final reading. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, before they could actually start putting anything in the ground, they would have to come back and get site plan approval, where we will look at some of these other things. We'll look at parking demand and make sure they have sufficient parking for the property and the use and buffering and things of that nature.
Okay, anything further, council? Do we have a motion to approve 2nd reading of ordinance number 1062?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion?
Yes, just a brief discussion point. I am in favor of this again. I will be voting in favor of this. I think we have moved the conversation on quite a bit from 2 weeks ago. I think there's still more to be talked about, but it does sound like there's going to be more advancement in the next, what did you say, this week, tomorrow? Perhaps there'll be more clarification. This discussion about, we already have a noise ordinance. It stops at 9 o'clock unless they ask for a variance. It sounds like we have some things to think about in terms of the variance, who it goes to, how often the city council has to see it. But I'm in favor of this because of the way we have continued the conversation. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay, we have a motion before us. Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Reddy? Burkhart?
Yes.
Hope?
Yes.
Evans? Martin?
Yes.
Motion passed. I want to thank everyone that came this evening and shared your concerns with us. We still have a long ways to go, so we still want to hear from you, so hang in there with us. Moving on to item 7F, consider third reading, adoption and publishing of ordinance number 1061, amending chapter 170.03 and 170.17 related to the regulations for temporary signage. Clayton?
There have no changes since second reading and no public comments received. I would just take this opportunity to note that following third reading, staff intends to identify signs that are made non-conforming by these changes and work on a public education plan. As the ordinance is written, it would go into effect January 1, 2022. So that gives us about 3 months now to begin working with property owners and educating our citizens about these new regulations.
Very good. Council have any questions for Adam?
Clayton.
Or that guy? Clayton? The father of Sophie?
Yeah.
2 little girls. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address council on this item? If not, do we have a motion? Whoops, I guess we do.
One question.
Could you please come up to the, what do we call this thing?
Podium.
Podium. Give us your name and your address, please.
Ed Hunter, member of Meadow Lark property. The question I have is this a venue where people pay to get in?
Okay, we have moved on to the next item, sir. Well,
It's okay. If I'm out of order, I'm out of order.
there will, back on your question, there will probably be opportunities for people to pay to get in, not pay to get in. The city is working on arrangements to give residents access for different activities that go on there. So there are multiple.
The other question was traffic from Pioneer. If they can't get in through the Merle Hay, were they allowed to park there and then walk down into the site that we have?
It will be very pedestrian friendly. So regardless of where they park, they should be able to get there by foot. Yep, you bet. Okay, did we have a motion? Okay. Do we have a motion to approve third and final reading, adoption and publishing of ordinance number 1060, and I've scribbled all over here, 1061?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Cindy, vote please.
Yes.
Yes.
Evans, Martin,
Yes.
Ready.
Moving on to item 7G, consider resolution number 21-291, amending the site plans for All Star Concrete at 5015 Johnston Drive, PZ case 2006. Thanks, folks.
This is a site plan. I believe you opened this item.
Is it the same? Looks the same.
Yes. Okay, so we've looked at this site plan before. It's the site plan for All Star Concrete at 5015 Johnston Drive. And we looked at it as recently as August of this year. And at that time, we had talked about a site expansion. Actually, Cindy, if you'll go back up to page 1, we looked at a site expansion for this property where the owner purchased some property east of 5015 Johnston Drive to expand his storage space on his property. So we amended the site plan at that time. We're back today because the site is wrapping up. They're completing some of the finished items. One of those is landscaping. And Cindy, now if you'll go down to that table, with the initial site plan approval, there was a buffer requirement of between this property and the north adjacent residential property of 60 feet along that north property line, with 13 evergreens, 7 overstory trees, and 19 understory trees, and 76 shrubs. Of course, the Code of Ordinances gives the City Council the ability to approve an alternative buffer. And when the site plan was approved, you did approve an alternative buffer. And what was approved is there on that table In the left column, I've got the required buffer per ordinance. And in the right column, I've got what we approved. We approved an 8-foot privacy fence, 5 evergreens, 4 overstory trees, and 5 understory trees. Of course, the thought process there being fewer shrubs and understory trees are needed if a fence is in place. And at this time, the owner's finishing up the site, has run into some practical difficulties associated with getting these buffer plantings in place. If you look closely at the site plans, the privacy fence was installed right on the property line, and there was a 5-foot space to the south of that privacy fence for the owner to install the landscaping. That's not really sufficient space to fit all the plantings in and have them be healthy specimens. And so he is requesting to move those buffer plantings, not to eliminate the buffer plantings, but to move them elsewhere on the site in other open space areas. So you would say, does that not contradict the purpose of having a buffer? And so I approached the adjacent property owner and asked, or the owner of the business did approach the adjacent property owner and asked if they had any issues with moving the plantings. She did supply me with that email today that I just passed out. The adjacent owner comments that she has no issue with moving the plantings. She's concerned that if he puts the plantings on the south side of the fence, they might actually damage the fence as they grow, and which would be more unsightly than the fence itself. I suggested perhaps we could plant the trees on the north side on her property with her permission. She said she doesn't want them on the north side, and one of those reasons is because she intends to graze cattle there. That is in an area where we allow that. There currently are some cattle on that property, although they're fenced a little further to the north. I think she intends to let them graze further south. So for those reasons, the adjacent property owner says she does not mind if we do not require those plantings be put in. In fact, she's encouraging us not to require him to install those buffer area plantings. And again, we're not asking to eliminate the plantings entirely, but rather to find open space areas on the site, elsewhere on the site, for him to install those. I told Alex I'd bring this before the council because it does require an amendment. And I've prepared a resolution that simply says, if you would pull up that resolution, I don't actually remember what the wording is. It should be at the end of my
You would have
staff
thought
report.
you just had a baby.
Simply says, the landscaping plan for 5015 Johnston Drive is hereby amended to allow redistribution of buffer area landscaping throughout the open space areas of the site. This is one of those instances where when we're looking at something on paper, everything looks fine. When they actually get out there on site and they're working with the constraints of the site, they say, hey, this isn't going to work. And then, so he's back to you tonight asking for this amendment. And Alex is, you're the president of All Star Concrete? Okay, Alex is the president of All Star Concrete, and he's here tonight if you have any questions for him.
Does council have any questions for Aaron?
Yes, I do. Just real quick, Aaron, I really appreciate the care and the follow-up that you have done for this issue. I know it's a minor issue, but you know it's very important to me about these landscape issues. And I think that I appreciate that you have worked through this with the owner. You've got the neighboring owner is fine with redistribution of the buffer, and it isn't only about planting plants along a buffer. There's also value to adding plants, and I know that you recognize that. So thank you for this. I appreciate it, and sounds great.
Any other questions or comments? Nobody's left in the audience except for the applicants, so. Chase them all away? If not, do we have a motion to approve resolution number 21-291?
So moved.
Have a motion and a second for the discussion? Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Cope,
Yes.
Evans, Martin,
Yes.
Ready, Burkhart.
Yes.
Motion passed. Item 7H, consider approval of claims in the amount of $498,419.30. We have a motion to approve. You have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Teresa, you couldn't spend more money than that? Sorry. We have a motion and a second. Cindy, vote please.
Evans, Martin,
Yes.
Ready, Burkhart.
Yes.
Coe.
Yes.
Motion passed. Moving on to city administrator, staff comments. Jim, do you want to pick up the item from the from the work session?
Yes, we can go back to the work session item, which relates to just the quarterly update. We do this with the city council regarding the strategic planning that we had completed earlier this year. And Cindy's bringing up the document on the screen. So after we completed the strategic planning, we set up the spreadsheet so that we could track what's happening with each of these items or issues that the city council brought up during the planning process. And actually, there's 3 of them. We have one that's considered committed, which are the items that are actively being pursued and we're tracking. We've committed funds and are moving forward with these items. And that's the one that Cindy has up on the screen. Just real quickly, we also have a category called planned, which means that we haven't, it's a shorter term projects that we plan to do in the next 1 or 2 years. We just haven't started, in most of the cases, started some of them. Some of the projects, actually, we do get started with, just other activities that are going on, but that's the second category. And the third category is future, which are items that were identified that have a little bit longer time frame, probably 2 years and beyond. So that's the way these are broken down. And again, this is just a simple spreadsheet that we use to track those. I do want to mention to the city council, and the city council has already approved us taking this document and incorporating it into a new program. It's called Invisio. And what that will provide, and Cindy provided in the staff report some examples of what Invisio does. And so as we're working with the company now and putting together the information so they can include it in the format that they have, which is a lot more graphic, provides graphs as well as much more information, a much nicer report than just doing the spreadsheet that we've done in the past. So we are in the process of moving to the Invisio product. And Cindy, what's the time frame on that?
We actually had a kickoff meeting on Friday last week. Training will start this week. I don't have a firm timeline. My plan, and they're aware of my plan, is to have something in place while we approach the budget time so that we can use this for our budgeting purposes as well.
Thank you, Cindy. And so with this Invisio product, we also, not only does it have the graphics, but we're also able to incorporate some of the citizen survey information in a dashboard related to that. So hopefully you had a chance to get out there and take a look at what this is, and we're excited about upgrading the reporting mechanism that we have to the city council regarding our strategic planning initiatives we put together. So that's sort of a look into the future. And so if we can go back, Cindy, to the graph that we provided to the council, the committed. In this graphic or in a spreadsheet, we have the items set up that we've committed to and are currently actively working on, and we have color coded it, meaning with the green meaning that the strategy is ongoing and is on or ahead of schedule. The yellow means the strategy needs some attention. Red means that it's behind schedule or not started, and then purple means that we've completed that particular strategy. So as you look down the items, these are again coming directly from the strategic planning process that we went through. We did have department heads update the information as far as where we are regarding moving towards project completion. So this should have some updated information from the staff on these particular initiatives that we're working on. So with that, I guess, again, we try to provide this at least on a quarterly basis to city council and would like to answer any question you may have as far as any of these projects, any of the initiatives that we've committed to and progress that we've made on these items.
Council have any questions for Jim on this?
Jim, just very quickly, some of the items under committed are, seem anyway, duplicative of the Plan It software. We got to see the CIP from Parks tonight, and I saw a couple of items that were Parks related on there. Is that what we're going to continue to expect, is that we will see them in both places? And in other words, the other question is, does Plan It allow to port a lot of that into Invisio directly so that we don't have to duplicate manual efforts in tracking that?
I will just, I mean, the Plan It software is for our capital improvements program. And so a lot of the initiatives the council does come up with does get put in the capital improvements program. I don't know if that's going to interact with Invisio.
I don't know enough to tell you that yet, Councilmember.
But the goal is that we are not getting rid of the capital improvements software because of Invisio.
And that provides the detail in each of those projects that are identified in the capital improvements program. So that's an important document. It talks about the funding and costs and all those kinds of things and gives you the detail you need to know as we work through each of those projects. So, yes, this doesn't replace that, or the Invisio won't replace that either. That's just a part of the tools that we have to share both to you and the public as far as what we're doing with the capital improvements program.
As you continue to learn more about Invisio, at a next quarterly meeting, I just would like to know how much efforts we're having to spend staff-wise now re-entering some of that data that's already in place versus being able to more smoothly bring it in. Thank you.
Go ahead.
The one thing I sort of feel a little bit like this spreadsheet is missing is the sort of 5 or 6 top priorities that we identified when we did our last strategic planning session. I'm sure they're in here, but to me, for instance, as I seem to recall, but one of the top priorities that we kind of identified was 86th Street redevelopment. And it's in this document, but you really have to look and find it. And so to me, I think we need to have in addition to the committed, future, and planned, sort of a identified priorities sheet that then we can look at and say, okay, these are, this is something that we've sort of set as a priority. Now one reason I mentioned this 86th Street is when we had our call with John Deere Financial, that was one of the issues they really identified. They talked about that. To me, I think the fact that it's something that it's not in the committed, it's in the future. And if you read through it, there's not a lot of detail on that bullet item. I think the fact that if we had one of our priorities that said, all right, here's our 5 or 6 priorities, you could look at those and you could see, oh, this priority, we got a lot of momentum, we're making a lot of progress. And this priority, maybe we don't. So what do we need to be doing differently? And so that would be one suggestion I would make, that to incorporate either whether it's into the Invisio system or this system, that I think is a little bit lacking right now, is that lack of the priority identification.
And the one thing I will say, Councilmember, is kind of like on the Scottsdale example, we will have 3 layers. So for example, infrastructure, I'm going to make them up because I can't find the sheet right off. But so infrastructure, and then it will say 86th Street or trails and then so each of those layers, you'll be able to see the details. So similar here, they have lifestyle and character, economic vitality. And when you go, you can see what make up those things. So in the strategic planning document that we received when we completed the strategic planning, it does lay those out that way, and they will be reflected that way in the Invisio.
And I guess what I'm saying is I don't think we need to not just identify them as sort of by their function,
correct,
but also by the priority level.
Absolutely.
And so it's kind of that to me needs to be figuring that how to incorporate, because otherwise if it just goes into the function, right, they all get kind of lost, and so we kind of lose track of which ones are the big priority.
Yeah, and that's on me having some shortcomings in explaining it to you. They will be prioritized as you have them prioritized.
Okay, great.
So they are, again, me making up the terms, imminent. These are our top things that we're working on in economic development. that you've identified as your top goals.
But I guess what I'm saying, Cindy, is I wouldn't just sort of say, these are the top priorities in economic development. These are the top priorities for the city overall, okay?
Correct.
So
Yep.
these are the top priorities, here's the 5 or 6 that are the top priorities, and then here's our other priorities broken down by functionality.
I got you.
That's what I'm trying to
Okay.
say.
Yep, I think we're saying the same thing, I'm just saying it poorly.
No, you rarely do that.
On the matrix that we have in the packet, while we still use this, there is the column E, talks about the justification, and that's where we have it, that it's a strategic plan issue. And we used specific words in there so we could sort. In this case, we've sorted now basically by committed, future, and planned. We could always put strategic plan and we could put a number behind it so you knew what priority number that was. But so then, like in particular, you had mentioned 86th Street redevelopment. That's on the futures tab. And it does say that it's a strategic plan item, but it doesn't say where in the priority of your strategic plan you had it. So we could be a little bit more specific. Do you see what I was trying to say?
Yep, exactly, and that does help but I still think we still need to have some sort of way, when we come out of our strategic plan and we've identified these are the top 4 or 5, that there's some continuation and flow and focus, and I this doesn't quite do it, and I just want to make sure we find a way to do that.
One of the items regarding strategic planning and the CIP, I was trying to find my note that the Finance Committee has talked about at several of our committee meetings, has to do with timing of things. And what Councilman Cope and Cindy and I met, and we think that based on budgeting, time-wise, I don't think I put this in a staff report. If I have, I apologize, it's late and I can't remember. So based on budget, timing, and fiscal years, that if we do the survey that we normally do with the community, and we do that in the spring, early spring, or after the first of the year, kind of somewhere in here, sort of the tail end of a fiscal year, we do this community survey first. You guys have the results. You do your strategic planning in August or September. You have your priorities. We move right into budget so that the time all flows, and fiscally you're not doing strategic planning and a survey in the same year as far as consultants. But time-wise then I want to put words in your mouth, Councilman Cope, but the timing was, you have the survey and the results, that helps you guys work on your priorities. We have your priorities, that's what helps us get our budget going. So that's kind of our vision here for after the 2022 starts. And depending on how this software turns out, we've got all these kind of irons going at the same time, but we'll try to get all that worked out and have be a well-oiled machine for you.
And it was sort of a year one would look kind of like you do the community survey in the spring and do the strategic planning in the late summer, early fall. And then year 2, you would do a community survey, and then you would do some sort of a shorter sort of follow-up strategic planning session. And then that would be how you would kind of manage it for a couple of years. And so the 3 of us talked about how to structure that. So.
Anything else for Jim on this item?
If you have any questions on any of the items that are reported this evening, feel free to get a hold of us. We won't need to take a lot more time tonight, but let us know if you have any questions on progress we're making that we can share information with you.
Jim, do you have anything else under city administrator comments?
Just a couple things real quickly. We did sit down last week with representatives from Capitol Crossroads, and it was myself and Adam and David Woolwarding, and one of the initiatives they're working on is a workforce housing initiative that they're going out now. And actually, we were the first community that they talked to, but they're going to talk to all the communities in the metro area and talk about workforce housing and what some of the barriers are, what some of the opportunities are that are in each of the communities. And so we had a real good conversation with them. My guess is we'll probably get some results after, probably in 2 or 3 or 4 months after they have a chance to talk to the other communities. But I just wanted the council to know that that's going on right now in case you hear something about it. But we will, when we get information back from Capitol Crossroads, we'll be sure to share that with the entire council. But we had our initial meeting with them to talk about that issue. Another item that I wanted to mention is, so we had a Movies in the Yard last Thursday night. Unfortunately, there was a weather event that brought some lightning in and actually collected fairly quickly. So we had to go ahead and shut the movie down, I think about 30 or 40 minutes into the movie. We have rescheduled that, and it's going to be on the 14th of October. Same plan as it'll be at 7 o'clock out in the yard. That night happened to be a beautiful night until the lightning moved in, but it was a nice event. I would like to see more people come to the event, but it's just a great venue to watch a movie and enjoy that. So put October 14th on your calendar for the, it'll be Field of Dreams again, just so we'll start it all over. We won't start where we ended last time, but so hopefully you can join us that evening. And then also, just want to let the council know we're in the process of working with the JEDCO board. When I say we, the staff are working with the JEDCO board on a strategic plan, and the council's aware of this. We did talk about that earlier, and we're paying 50% of the cost of the consultant that's working on the plan. But I want the council to know that they're going to reach out to each of you and ask for participation, feedback. They're going to have a series of focus groups that they will invite you to attend, as well as other business leaders in the community and other governments, and talk about where JEDCO is and where we want JEDCO to go in the future. And so it's going to be a great process, again, working very closely with the JEDCO board, and eventually come back with some strategic ideas of how we move our economic development efforts forward. So just wanted to give you a heads up on that, and our consultant will be reaching out to you. Is Adam still here? Okay. Yeah, so either his name's Joe Benish, and Adam's working with him, and so you'll get an email either from Joe or Adam letting you know that the process is going, inviting you to participate in the process. That's all I had for this evening.
City council comments? Councilwoman Martin?
I don't have anything else to say, except that if you're going to the movie in the yard, bring bug spray.
On October 14th?
With this crazy weather?
Yeah.
I was going to bring a blanket.
Nothing further to say. Look forward to seeing you on Wednesday.
Councilman Cole.
2 things. I want to thank Matt. We had a little small issue in our neighborhood where one of those street grates that, covers up the rain got popped up. And I called Matt and took a picture of it real quick, and he buzzed over and came over and took care of it. So I appreciate that. Also want to really appreciate, I'm really excited about all the strong partnerships we have at Terra Lake with the DNR on fishing. It's one of the cool things to me is that the DNR is a state agency. And so I sort of think of them as they really focus on the state parks and stuff like that. But all the different things that we do with them, the new catfish that we're putting in there, they came in and did the electric kind of figuring out what we have and as far as, fish counts and stuff. Just really think that's a great partnership, and really wanted to call out John and thank you guys for doing that, because I think that's really enhances the benefit of the effectiveness of Terra Park. So.
And the programs that they've done this.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
That's all right.
I wanted to explain why you're saying apparently there was a lot of discussion last meeting
Okay, well, I don't have anything else for the good of the order, so we are adjourned. John, I have a question for you.